Eastern. 3 more games continuing throughout the day on ESPN and ESPN+. What an extraordinarily good little juncture on the sports calendar it is. Little League World Series, U.S. Open tennis is just starting. Wow! Oh, and a game called football is also right around the corner. And look at the all-star team we put together today. The Dans over here. Wow! The LSU Heroes over here. And we had Monday Night Football last night. And speaking of LSU legends, wow! We had a few of them playing quarterback last night as well. We got Joe Burrow, we got Jaden Daniels, and for Washington, we've got the new addition.
Ultimately, let's not gallop until the real game starts, Jaden. Sees a window, uses that great athleticism, and should slide.
Weather will.
That's just brutal.
That's horrible.
Commanders a 14-7 lead, and then we got Burrow getting chased around on the other side again.
Senseless.
Now, he's actually doing things he doesn't do in real games. I think Joe Burrow is trying to get some reps. He's trying to make sure we can try to get first downs and have extra opportunities to throw the football, but you can't take that.
So guy in his progression, Joe sets his feet, peeks right, goes 1-2, and then that replace the timing, the ball placement, the accuracy, the pace, it's just perfect.
So at what point do he not play?
And they would win at 31-17.
Yeah.
But gentlemen, the story is this. I mean, Cincinnati's defense was 25th in the league last year, and they're picking up right where they left off. In the first quarter yesterday, 9 of their 11 defensive starters were playing. They allowed 14 points on 7 plays. They allowed 17 yards per carry through the running game. That's not good. After the game, our Troy Aikman, who was there calling it, had a lot of concern.
I just don't know how this team can be good enough defensively. We saw what happened last year, that they can accomplish what they want to. And as we talked about, they've wasted some good years with Joe Burrow, especially last year when he played in an MVP-type season.
That's not hyperbole. Joe Burrow absolutely could have been the MVP of the league last year based on how bad his defense was and the fact that he still had them alive for playoff contention on the final Sunday of the season. Of course, they would not wind up making it. You put together a tape on just what we're seeing from this defense.
Bad angles, bad gap integrity, slow on defense. This is the defense last year just could not find a way to fundamentally be sound. Fired defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. Al Golden comes in, who's an incredibly well-respected defensive mind. And the concern is it looks worse. I mean, this is a jet sweep. I'm not saying this is an easy play to stop, but guys are taking bad angles. They're going underneath blocks. They're not squeezing when it comes to us as offensive guys trying to block them inside out. And Deebo Samuel, who you would imagine everybody's antennas would be up on when he's on the field, goes for 20. And then Jaden Daniels' run that he scores on, the thing that I see is like, oh my gosh, he looks so much faster than everybody on the defense. There's 4, 5, 6 guys on Cincinnati's defense that really have some form of vision on them, and they're not even close to touching him until he kind of runs to them 2 or 3 yards from the end zone. So, man, I know Jaden and Joe. I was just watching that game going, oh my, I sent notes to capital letters. This defense is terrible right now.
And it's playing without Trey Hendrickson, which is its best player by far, and may have to continue doing that. Is there any update on his contractual situation?
No movement on that. Well, I think as we get closer to the start of the season, you'll probably see some rekindling of talks. And I think, you know, both sides want this to end a certain way, which is with him on the team. So it's just a matter of finding that resolution. I don't believe that they're really going to trade him. I think it's a matter of when can they get this done and when can they get him on the field.
Yeah, I think, though, when you look at this defense, as good as Trey Hendrickson was last year, they stunk. And now you look at last night's game, and it's like porta potty at the end of a Mardi Gras Day parade on Bourbon Street, kind of funky, right? And so when you think about Al Golden coming over, Al Golden coming over from Notre Dame Fighting Irish, he was a part of this defensive staff when they went to the Super Bowl. So they're trying to rekindle some of that. But what they missed, and Marcus talked about this a little bit earlier, is some of the players they had on that team. Dan mentioned not having speed to the football. Well, you have to have players who not only are fast, but players who want to get to the football, players who show that level of effort. And all of that was blamed on Lou Anarumo last year. Maybe they just don't have the guys, but this is what I know. When you're a defensive player and you look at Joe Burrow, you look at if I get a turnover, if we get an extra possession, we're probably going to win a ton of football games. And so somebody has to step up in this defensive room. I don't know if it's Logan Wilson. I don't know if it could be Trey Hendrickson. I don't know if it could be John Battle and say, hey, look, We need to be better, and if we're better, we have an opportunity to not only be a playoff contender, but a Super Bowl contender.
I went back and found the number. We were talking about it last year. Last season, teams that when their team scored 33 or more points, teams in the NFL were 79-7.
Yes.
Last year, if you scored 33 points, you went 79-7.
The Bengals?
The Bengals in games in which they scored 33 points were 3-4. That's almost impossible to do. They were under 500 when they scored 33 or more points. And if anything, their defense looks worse. So the question becomes, are they wasting what might be as good a quarterback as we have in the NFL?
100% they're wasting it. And look, this is I was thinking about this because Graz talked about it with Cincy and their contract. This is a new era for them. This is the first time, like, they've had good quarterbacks, but they have a potentially Hall of Fame quarterback, a generational guy.
Sure.
So this is a new standard of operation. And what they didn't realize is what Kansas City, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, and give them all this guaranteed money and have nothing go towards the unit that actually cost you games last year.
But the difference with Kansas City, right? They replaced the guys that aged out or got paid elsewhere on defense with draft picks that had impact right away, right? So 2 years ago they were in the Super Bowl and guys, McDuffie, guys like that. The Bengals defensive draft picks haven't hit on that level. So they're still hoping to develop some of those and counting on some rookies this year.
No quarterback deals with a worse dealt hand than Joe Burrow. Think about the comparison we're talking about with the greats in our league. Lamar, Josh, Patrick, Jalen Hurts, Stafford. Those guys all have like very high-level complementary units. Joe's dragging and working at a deficiency, and I'm thinking, when was the last time in the league a great quarterback had a situation like this? A great quarterback had the opposite unit that was just so historically bad.
Well, the other piece of it is this, though, and this is not something we've talked about because we've sort of applauded the Cincinnati Bengals for signing both of Joe's wide receivers when he asked. Maybe they shouldn't have signed T. Higgins. Joe Burrow is good enough, in my opinion, that now that you see a Mitchell Tinsley, you think of Yoshi Vosh, you think of having Gesicki at the tight end position, Jamar Chase either number 1 or number 2 in the overall league. If T. Higgins isn't signed, can you take that money and bring in mid-level veterans that not only bolster this team from a talent standpoint, but from an experience standpoint, from a physicality standpoint? Like, you made a decision based on your emotional attachment to one of the best players your organization has ever had.
And to your point, RC, let's just look at the team in Colorado. It took Bo Nix 7 months to convince them that we got to go out on the other side of the football, who we were already good. They signed Ufunga. They signed Dre Greenlaw. You already have a Hall of Fame cornerback on that side of the field.
Signed Zach Allen.
Yeah, they weren't. And got Cortland Sutton signed, obviously, but who was not in the same class as Jamar. But T, to be determined if he plays well. But ultimately, they watched the same damn thing we watched last year. And there should have been an onus put on how do we immediately get this defense better.
Right.
And this has before anybody misconstrue, it has no indictment on how good T. Higgins is.
No doubt.
He would have got paid anyway. The problem is you still are probably going to get a high-level, top 5 level of production without T. Higgins on your offense.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's where the issue lies for me.
I was back in the spring, I was in the camp of Jamar, Trey Hendrickson, T. Higgins. That was the order that I preferred defensively. But then I think about, well, Philly's got 2 receivers that they pay a ton of money, and I know Philly's draft has gone vastly different than Cincinnati.
They draft Jalen Carter.
But the reality is they're here. Like, the reality is it's August 19th, and they're here. And you can only so many times waste 40 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. And unless it gets better very quickly, we know how the story's going to end this year for Cincinnati. They're going to be awesome on offense. They're going to be 8-9 and miss the playoffs again. And then in 2026, it's going to get really noisy about, well, what do we do then? Because I know it's the preseason. I don't want to overreact. My God bless. Who's the player on the defense?
But you're not overreacting. This is carryover from the last 5 months of football.
And, like, what is the quarterback thing? I remember Joe last year stating, I feel I have to be perfect. He was darn near close, and it wasn't good enough.
And again, they're 3-4 in games in which they score 33 points. You're putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Let me pause on that thought. Coming up, we have a lot more to do, including the hope in Chicago, digging deeper into a Sunday start. The future only looks brighter for the Bears. Plus, everything old is new. Are the Browns making a huge mistake at the quarterback position? We'll answer those questions and